Hello, my name is Cam Tinley. I'm from the No Mandatory Vaccination Party, obviously speaking about the upcoming election. Unfortunately, the No Mandatory Vaccination Party won't be appearing on any ballot papers. That's because the Electoral Commission has taken so long to process our application that we passed the deadline. So we'll be running as independents here in WA. We wanted to run in every seat in the country. It's very important in this election to make sure that people vote correctly. There's been a lot of talk and a lot of bad advice being given. I want to correct some of that advice. First of all, the best thing the minor parties ever had was the group voting ticket. The group voting ticket was a system whereby each minor party could direct all of the preferences to wherever they wanted, and they went right the way to the end of the ballot paper. With the group voting ticket, the minor parties were guaranteed to get somebody elected every election, guaranteed, if they all worked together. Obviously, the major parties changed that system to suit themselves. They've got a system and they recommend people vote 1 to 6 above the line or 1 to 12 below the line. That's what they recommend. So if they're recommending that, that means that it suits them and it's not the way for minor parties to operate. I recommend we're going to be recommending 1 to 17 above the line and not vote below the line at all. Some people are suggesting 1 to 12 below the line. It's absolutely ridiculous. First of all, why you shouldn't vote below the line. The system of 1 to 12 below the line has been created for one reason, and that is so the hacks in the Liberal, Labor, National and Green Labor can make sure that they get all the votes. They can make sure that every vote goes to them. The Greens, for example, in WA have nominated 6 positions. They've nominated 6 candidates. They may not win any positions, or at best they'll win 1 position. So why have they nominated 6 candidates as they did at the last 2019 election? It's so people in the Labor and Greens can make sure they only vote for 2 parties. They want to vote for the 6 Green candidates and then the 6 Labor candidates, or the other way around. People want to vote for the 6 Labor candidates and then the 6 Green candidates, and nobody else will get a preference. That's why the 12 system has been put in place. Same with the Liberal Party. The Liberal Party could give 6 to their candidates, 3 to the Nationals, and a couple of the Christians, or wherever they want to do. That's why it's there. That is a system that suits the political hacks. It's not the system that minor parties should use. For example, in Western Australia, we've got about 17 candidates who are from freedom parties. If people are only going to vote 1 to 12 below the line, then some of the Freedom Party people won't even get a vote. And the person that's been promoting this is George Christensen from Queensland. His advice has been absolutely deplorable. I can't believe that people are listening to him or that he would give such ridiculous advice. His advice should be rejected every time you hear him. It's typical National Party situation where they're going to put Nationals first, Liberal Nationals and whatever, and the minor parties don't get a look in. And he's suggested that by voting this way, that's what intelligent, savvy voters do, but it's not. It's what pretentious voters do. And the votes get thrown out. It's a ridiculous thing, so we only want to vote above the line. Now, there is also a problem with something that Reignite Democracy have put out. I'm not sure why they've done it, but I've received it. It's got their logo on. And it's suggested that people vote above the line and number 6 position should go to a major party. I'm not sure why people in the freedom movement would vote for a major party. Most people I've spoken to don't want to vote for major parties at all. But it's pretty clearly there suggesting that number 6 should be reserved for a major party. I don't know which major party I'm talking about there, but No Mandatory Vaccination Party, we're going to be recommending 1 to 17 above the line, which you're allowed to do, which would be the most I've seen anybody do. I've seen parties go up to 10. We're going to go up to 17. We're going to go to 17, and we're not going to include any major parties at all. Only going to be minor parties. Majors will be left. After 17, they'll all be gone, and you can do that. So that's what we recommend. Below the line is definitely problematic. Now, what is going to happen in this election? People have been talking about bring a pen. I've been involved in elections for 40 years. I've seen hundreds of thousands of votes in person. I've never, if people have got evidence of this, I'd like to hear about it. I have never seen a vote get rubbed out and replaced with another number. It would be very obvious. If people have seen that, I'd like to hear about it. But the writing would be different. If you rubbed out a number 1 or a number 2 and changed it, it would be clear that it's been rubbed out. But what happens all the time is people cross numbers out and put a new number in. They've changed their mind. You see that all the time. But the big problem in this election is going to be the Latin number 7. What is the Latin number 7? People from Southern Europe, Italy, Spain, Europe generally, apart from the UK, they use an unusual number 1 that looks like a number 7. Every single seat in Western Australia has more than 7 candidates in the House of Representatives. That means that all 1.7 million votes, for them to be formal, the people are going to have to use a number 7 somewhere. They'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 in Perth. They're going to use all of those numerals. Now, if you've got somebody who's from the Electoral Commission, yes, or it could be a scrutineer, and I've seen this happen, they will say there's 2 number 7s on this ballot paper, this is informal, and this is going to happen across the country to hundreds of thousands of votes, because every single person in Western Australia is going to put either a number 1 and a number 7 on. Sometimes you honestly can't tell which, they're correct, you cannot tell which is a number 1 and what is a number 7. So this is enough to really swing a lot of seats, and it can change things significantly. And we've never seen this situation before, because so many freedom parties have nominated, record number by far, the most in the country is here in WA, and all of those votes are going to be up for scrutiny. So my recommendation, and this needs to get out there, is to just have one vertical line for a number 1, and if you put a number 7, put a cross through it. Now the how to vote that Monica or the Reignite Democracy have put out definitely has a number 1 that looks like a number 7, and they are going to be a big problem. And if you vote below the line, they're going to say a number 11's a number 77. They don't care. I've seen it happen in elections in WA before the current Electoral Commission here in WA. A lot of ridiculous things used to happen in elections, and I've seen blatant cheating going back 25 years. Well, no, 35 years I've seen blatant cheating. And I'll go through some of that cheating that people need to be aware of. First of all, don't write any comments on your ballot paper. I saw votes by the hundreds thrown out when people would write "Go Pauline" or "Yes Pauline" or something like that. The Electoral Commission would say this voter is identifying themselves. And I'm saying, what, you reckon we've got hundreds of Pauline Hansons live in this electorate? They say the name's on it, that's an informal vote. So don't write anything on it. Don't put diagrams on it, whatever they are. And obviously people put some pretty crude things on the ballot paper, they get thrown out. People might get a bit of a chuckle when they're counting the vote, but your vote gets thrown out. That's a massive problem. And I'll just talk about examples of the most blatant cheating I've seen, and it was in federal elections in the electorate of Stirling, which historically was the most marginal seat in the country. Whoever won Stirling won the election, but they used to concentrate because it was always line ball, 51-49, that sort of thing. The most blatant cheating I've seen was at the end of the day. They said, right, the informal votes are going into 2 piles. One is for informal, the other pile is for blank votes. And a lot of people just put the ballot paper in with nothing on it. And I'd never seen this happen before. And other people said, we've never seen this before. And I was a scrutineer for the Liberal Party at that time. And I thought, I'm going to have to keep my eye on these blanks, because somebody could easily fill them in. And I'm watching the whole time, trying to watch, but different things are happening. It's hard to keep your eye on the ballots. So I knew there were 12 uncompleted ballots in one booth in Stirling. And sure enough, by the end of the day, somebody had filled them in. There were no blank ballots at all. So that was 12 in one booth, 40 booths per electorate. That's 400 times somebody's put in a vote, and 400 votes in sterling's enough to swing it. So people have to be beware of these blank ballots that go in. Also, the Latin number 7, Balcatta, is historically the booth that gets the most informal votes. Balcatta Primary School, Balcatta High School, for about 30 years were the worst booths for informal votes. Now the worst booths in Mirrabooka, where there's a big African community, and nobody's educated them about how to fill in a valid vote. And the informal vote can get up to 17% over there, but Balcatta it's about 11%. The worst case, and people have to be careful of this because you can get set up, any breaches of the Electoral Act, serious, heavy penalties. That's why I don't think people rub numbers out and put new ones in. That would be an incredibly harsh jail sentence. It's much easier just to say that's a number 1 or that's a number 7. That's the way they do it. But the way I got set up was this situation. I was at Doubleview Primary School in Stirling, and I was scrutineer. I was inside the booth, and the chief returning officer of that booth said, can we have a scrutineer from the Liberal Party? We've got a blind person who wants to vote. I said, oh, well, that'd be me. I'm the scrutineer. I've never seen this happen before, but the guy came in with his cane and he said, right, here's my ballot paper. I want you to fill it out for me. I'm blind. I said, okay, here we go. He said, number 4, there were only 4 candidates, Liberal, Labor, Australian Democrats and Greens, from memory. Anyway, he said the 4th position, start at the bottom, 4th, Greens. That's a good start. Yep, we'll put Greens 4. 3, Democrats. Yep, that's pretty predictable. And then he said number 2, Liberal. I thought, hang on, he's asked for a Liberal scrutineer. He's putting 2 Liberal, so therefore Labor will get the vote. So I've done what he's asked. I put a 2 for Liberal. When I put the 2 for Liberal, he's just turned around and bolted. He wasn't blind at all. He's run out of the place so he wouldn't get caught. It was a complete setup. If I had have not done what he was told, I would have been in breach, and it was a setup to get me into some pretty serious trouble. That's the sort of thing that can happen. It's the worst case I've had, because I think that was pretty much directed at me, and that is the sort of thing that can happen. So it's very important that people get used to act as scrutineers. You can see the way it works, you can see the rules, you can see the things that happen. A lot of people giving advice, I'm sure they've never been a scrutineer. I've been a scrutineer for 40 years. I'm sure a lot of the people giving advice have never seen a vote apart from their own in their life. So they're in no position to give any advice whatsoever. And a lot of this advice, such as George Christensen's terrible advice on this 12 below the line, it's so ludicrous that it's, and I've seen it a couple of times. I was going to not say anything the first time I heard him propose this absolute insanity, but he did it again a couple of days ago. So his advice definitely not worth listening to. Anybody that doesn't know what they're talking about is not worth listening to either. So my recommendation is above the line. We shouldn't even mention below the line, all above the line, and go as far as you can without including the major parties. If you go 1 to 17, there's no problem in that. You're going to have to go 1 to 11 anyway in the lower house. So what's the difference between in the Senate paper going 1 to 17? You save a few seconds of your life, but it could mean the difference. And every vote is going to count. For example, if you vote, just say you voted GAP 1, then number 1 on the ticket, Rod Cullerton would get a number 1. I can't remember who was number 2, Sheila, somebody. I'm sorry, Sheila, if I forgot your name. I think that's the name. She would automatically get the number 2. If the second place goes to Group P, which is me, I would get the number 2, but effectively I would get the 3, and my running partner would get the number 4. So when you feel above the line, then you're effectively voting below the line as well, but it's just in that order. So if you're number 1 to 17, you're actually voting for about 49 people, and the Electoral Commission, nobody can throw your vote out. When you go below the line, they know you're being a bit smart, really. That's really how they look at it. They look at who's got the number 1, and then they're looking for an excuse to throw that vote out. So we want to every vote counted. It's very important. And so that's my recommendation. So they're the things to watch out for. The main advertising in this for us, minor parties, is to use one vertical stroke for a number 1, not put the hook at the top such as you'll see on a keyboard, and definitely not as pronounced as what is on the RDA piece of paper that I've got here that must be around the place. It's got RDA's logo on it, symbol on it. But that's the way to do it. So that's all I'd like to say. I'd like to thank Tony for letting me use this studio. It's really appreciated. It's a very professional operation here. Thanks everybody, and we've got 3 weeks to work very hard for the next election. Thank you.